So I was talking to my employee Velko the other day, and I was telling him how excited I am for Christmas, especially because our business has done exceptionally well this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's been our best year so far. By the way, did you plan to get us any presents or something?
Holy shit, I forgot the presents. And the worst part about this is that at the holiday times, payment processors take forever to deliver your money. And there's no way that after our best year, I wasn't gonna get my team some Christmas gifts. So I only had one solution: to take this $1,000 in crypto that I had and flip it overnight to as much as I could to get my whole team some gifts. So the first trade that I ended up taking was GBP AUD, and I wanted to risk $300 on this setup. Reason being is I knew that there was going to be a way where I could turn this $300 into a potential $1,000 and already be up 100% on my account. Now I couldn't just pick any pair. I had to go to forexfactory.com and dial in on the fundamentals and then cross-reference my technical analysis to make sure that something makes sense for me. So to start this week off, we had no high impact news releases. So I know I had to go back and check the previous data to make sure that I'm in alignment with the fundamentals. And what I immediately saw was that Friday ended the market with GBP retail sales, which came out negative, meaning that if their retail sales are decreasing, then I should see a bearish push on the Great British Pound. So now I'm already thinking bearish GBP, and I wanted to find something that was bullish. When I saw this over here, employment change 35.6 thousand, meaning that 35.6 thousand people in the Australian economy had added jobs. Now also, their unemployment rate decreased. So if more people are being employed, then there's going to be more money flowing into the economy as more people are getting paid. Now I took that info and headed to the charts right around 1 a.m. Eastern. So the first thing I noticed was this dynamic liquidity getting broken over here. So it's very obvious to see. We have touch, separation, and then a third touch, separation, and a break towards the downside. Now, once I saw this break towards the downside, I figured, okay, I want to get in some sells, but I want to see price actually retest this level so I can make sure that it's valid. So I waited for price to pull back up. And then the second I saw this retest over here, and a strong close towards the downside, I decided to hop in. Now I used my stop loss as that last high before price broke structure towards the downside. And then my take profit was simple. I was gonna set my stops to break even right when we reached over here, and I was gonna target the lows of this dynamic liquidity. As you guys can see, price immediately goes into a bit of profit, pulls back into drawdown, and then comes back straight into profit right after retesting that trend line. Now, once we had this retest over here, I decided this is a good opportunity to enter another trade. So I already have a $300 risk on a potential 1 to 2.7, right? So I should be making anywhere around $800 on this trade. And now what I did was add another scale in for $150 right at this level over here. I took my stops right above this high, and I just let the markets melt towards my take profit. Now I saw price get super close to my take profit and actually enter this little demand zone, as you guys can see right here, and then completely give me a bullish close outside of it. So right when I saw this bullish close right here, I decided to hop out of this trade, and I secured a 1 to 1.5 risk to reward ratio and just about a 1 to 2. And I was up about $750 total just from those two trades. Now at that same time, I decided to take that bullish Australian dollar buys, and I also entered euro odd sells. So let me show you guys how that looked. Right away, what I did was I spotted this dynamic liquidity right here and saw price just start to give me very bearish structure, as well as I'm already fundamentally bullish on the Australian dollar, so I heavily believed in this trade. Right when I saw price close under this trend line, pull back up, and then give me another candle closure towards the downside, I wanted to see if there was any aggressive model trade that I could take. So what I did was, right when I saw price give me one pullback candle and then close below that, I decided I want to hop in this trade. And I want to keep this trade very tight. So what I did was I tucked my stops right above here, and I even drew this dynamic liquidity right over here. Now, knowing how aggressive I was playing this trade, all I wanted to do was target liquidity resting right above the lows of my low. That to me was going to be this level right over here. And as you guys can see, price starts to give you this drop and it starts to almost break back above. So at this point, I set my stops to break even. And then all I did was let price move back in my favor. And then I closed out of my trade manually right around over here. And that secured me just about $400 to add to this challenge. So at this point, I was up about $1,200 on the challenge. Now, before I continue, I want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you guys who celebrate. Hopefully you guys are spending time with family and friends. And you know what? I even have a gift for all of you guys. So far in the last 12 months, I've made over $1.6 million as a trader. And not just that, but my community has made over $3 million in profits collectively just in 2024, which is exactly why I'm doing something that I never thought I'd do. And this Friday, December 27th at 6 p.m. Eastern, I'm hosting my first and last ever free masterclass where I'm going to go over my exact strategy that took me from having $67 in the bank to over 2.4 million in just 2 years. Not only that, but I'm going to expose the exact roadmap so you guys can follow it and get started with your first or next 10 to 12K month as a profitable trader. So if you guys want to claim a free ticket, seats are limited, but I'm going to leave the link to that in the description. Let's get back to this video. Now, the next trade I took was NZD USD, and my main bias behind this was that if you look at last week's market, you can see that GDP for the New Zealand dollar comes out at -1%. Now, they were forecasting -0.2%, meaning that there was a much bigger decrease than they had initially thought. Not only that, but they revised previous data to be worse than what it was initially released as. So to me, this was a double whammy for a bearish side. So I was looking at all pairs for NZD sells. Now here you guys can see we had touch separation, touch separation, touch separation, and then a fake break and a new dynamic liquidity being built over here. Now, I didn't want to enter over here because obviously we had that fake out break right there, and I wanted to make sure I was on the right side of the market. But one thing that I really did like is if you look at the 1 hour time frame here, it respects where that fake break happened. Not only that, but then we get that solid close under there, a retest, and then a solid close once again. So that right there is what told me it was go time for NZD USD. I simply waited for price to break out of this, and as you guys can see right there, it rejects one last time, and then it finally taps me in. And because we had this little fake out back to the upside and then a drop, I took my stop loss right above that fake out and let this ride. Now my whole bias behind this trade was that I was gonna let this melt all the way down to here. Now as I actually let this play out, you guys are gonna see in the middle of this trade, I end up getting in another trade. So upon this massive bearish candle that you guys can see on the minute 5 right there, we actually had a news release for the Canadian dollar. And as you guys can see, the Canadian dollar had growth in their GDP, meaning that their economy is growing. So this already to me signaled a bullish Canadian dollar. Now I'm bearish on the New Zealand dollar and I'm bullish on the Canadian dollar, meaning that it sets up for a perfect fundamental sell on NZD CAD. So I switched over to NZD CAD and initially took this trade right over here, where you guys can see price shoots up first and then gives me a strong close towards the downside. I ended up putting my entry right here with my stop right above that high. I was like, hey, you know what? There's no reason why we should be continuing further up if we really are bearish. All right, I just got back to the PC. I'm in a bit of drawdown right now, but still overall think that, you know, my stop loss is valid. Now I can see here, price starts to stagnate and then it ends up wicking me out. And to me, I'm okay taking a loss, but honestly, I was stressing. I don't know why. I think it's the fact that I hadn't closed out my NZD USD trade, and now I lost this trade. So now I went from being up about $12.50 all the way back down to around $850. And I knew that I had to get my team gifts, so I didn't want to let this go to waste. So then I decided it was time to lock in. I stayed on NZD CAD because I know that fundamentals don't lie. The only reason why this didn't work is simply because I mistimed it. I was probably too early. And once I saw price break towards the downside over here, I decided that it's time to re-get into NZD CAD. Now it's the same thing, very simple buys. I'm just strictly targeting the lows of my dynamic liquidity. So now I have two trades simultaneously running, NZD USD and NZD CAD. Now for NZD USD, I let it do its thing, right? You guys can see, I let price build up the way it was supposed to. It started to make its way back up, but then it gives me a very strong push towards the downside. And I can see price literally just melting. And at this point, I just wanted to make sure that I secure a very strong position because I was literally floating about $1,200 at this point. And there's no reason why I should be floating more than my initial balance on this account and let this all slip away. I'm going stops to break even on NZD USD. So I did move my stops to break even, but even then, a break even on this one would have completely hurt me. So once I saw this really aggressive bullish movement here, I decided to close out of this trade. And this trade alone put me up $1,500. So I just went from being around $875 to up $2,300 on this account. Now, while that was going on, my NZD CAD position did one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Guys, the weirdest thing just happened where you can literally see broker manipulation. So this is Owanda charting. Look at this huge wick. Now, luckily, I have the best broker around. That wick is nowhere to be seen here, right? And then if I go to FXCM charting, that wick is nowhere to be seen. I have not been stopped out, but that was just really shocking to see. I wonder how many people lost money in a big spike like that. That literally doesn't even appear across my price feeds. So what I noticed was that the Owanda chart literally had broker manipulation. Luckily, the broker that I use is here for the traders. So they give you tools like 200% deposit bonuses, meaning that if you deposit 1,000, they'll give you another 2,000 in credit like they did on my account. And that's why I've been able to use these large lot sizes, but they also don't manipulate your charts. They give you the best spreads, the best accounts. I mean, zero commission accounts, raw spreads, all that good stuff. So if you guys want that, I'm gonna leave the link in the description to the best broker out there. Nonetheless, back to NZD CAD. This trade absolutely starts to melt down, and it started to really make me feel good because what that showed me was my fundamental bias was really in line here. I decided to check forexfactory.com. So at this point, I saw CB, consumer confidence for the dollar, came out bearish. And that was also a great signal for me to get out of NZD USD. At this point, I decided, let's take a look at USD CAD. Looking at USD CAD here, I can see that this dynamic liquidity is very respected. And the reason why I don't consider this a break is because this candle doesn't close below it. It just opens the next candle over and then it respects it. So I still find this dynamic liquidity to be very valid. Then price builds its way up, breaks under, and all I did was wait for a retest at this level and for price to show me that it's going to move bearish. So here you guys can see price pulled back up and then gave me a nice little indecisive candle and a very strong bearish candle. Not only that, but I could very clearly draw this dynamic liquidity and then set my stops to break even as soon as this starts rolling into profit. So my target for this trade as well was very simple. Just simply target the lows of this dynamic liquidity. Not only that, but we have this dynamic liquidity as well, where price should essentially come in line with. Now, I let price do its thing here, and honestly, just because of the fact that I was already very deeply in profits and how heavy my fundamental bias was on this trade, knowing that I had two fundamental news biases in the same session get released during this same session, I decided it was time to go in. So I still decided to hold this even when it broke above, and you guys can see it drops back down, gives you a very clean push towards the downside. All right, guys, so judging simply on the profits right here and kind of how rejecting, we broke above that. Again, I'm up 1 to 2.5 on this setup, and also looking at USD CAD, I'm up right now, a little over 1 to 1. I'm just gonna close out of these trades because I started this account out with 1K equity, currently is 7,700, which is unbelievable, unheard of. So you guys can see from 1K to 5.7K, and it's been like 7 hours. That's exactly why I always say fundamentals don't lie. So once I saw this huge drop right here, I decided to take a look at my account, and I noticed that my $1,000 account was almost sitting at $6,000. So I had flipped $1,000 to over 5K in just a matter of a couple hours, which is more than enough to take care of my team. So I got out of USD CAD right here, and also decided to get out of NZD CAD as I saw it start to trickle its way back up. And to be honest with you guys, I am extremely sick right now. So I had done this crazy trading bender and just simply wanted to secure my positions.